All right. Welcome, everybody. We are on the inaugural Media Psychos Spotlight. And today we have the Major. We definitely appreciate you coming on. We are in MP trying to grow, right? A lot. And I've been trying to push that a lot for our people out there because people connect in different ways, right? Some people
Mhm.
connect with forums, and the best part, right, is that you're going to see things like Discord, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube now, right? Like we're expanding the globe, we're taking over, right? Is what we're trying to do. But it's also because we also know everybody does things differently, right? Like some people, they're on their phones, they're not really on computers as much, right? Whereas some of us older guys, we're on computers a lot because it's a lot easier for us, right? So but we also understand trying to be, there for everybody. And so today, right, we are starting that initial series, right? And it's called the Spotlight Series. And what is the Spotlight Series? Well, Nate went crazy, right? He thought it might be a good idea to start having our MP members on our channel, right? Because they are the bread and butter of the Media Psychos forum, right? They are the ones who are there with us. They're talking every day about what's going on in social in the physical media realm. They're also looking at the group buys. They're looking at all these release shifts. They're giving me heartache when the beauty shot doesn't look right, right? Like because something got uploaded incorrectly. And that's okay. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to take care of you guys. But also here, we want to see and we want to talk to everybody to see how they really are. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to the Major. And if you could give us an introduction to yourself.
Hey everyone. Before we start, I want to do a couple of shout outs. Number one, many kudos to obviously to Nate here and to all the moderators, to all the administrators who've put in so much of their free time and effort to make MP and to evolve MP to where it is today. As Nate said, we're still growing and moving, in the right direction. But sometimes, there's some hiccups along the way, and that's how we learn, right? And grow from there. So again, thank you to everyone for all the work that you've done to make the group buys and to make this experience where it is today. Next, I just want to say thoughts and prayers to those members who are going through some health situations. So again, want to just send those thoughts out to those people. And then I guess without further ado about me. So I've been on MP pretty much almost since the inception. I was invited to join by Master Blaster, and that was many years ago. And our paths crossed when he was selling steelbooks on eBay, and I was sort of one of his so-called regular customers. And I think we conversed. I don't remember all the details. I mean, when you get to my age, as Nate said, certain things just become a blur. But I received an invitation, and to be very candid, I was hesitant at first, but then finally wore away, and I joined, and pretty much haven't looked back on that. So, in regards to my journey toward collecting physical media, um, when I was much younger, it started out with comic books, in terms of the raw books. So, I mean, I do a little bit of show and tell here. Um, this is like, I haven't slabbed it, but this is like a raw book of Spider Woman #1. I'm not sure you can see it through the filter or the blur I have going on here. And then now it's gone into some of these titles that I've, like this is what's called a version cover, where there's no text or anything. I didn't know about this until probably about a year ago, as I sort of slowly gotten back into comics. And that's my first love and my, first passion, from there. So, and then in regards to, you know, moving on from there, I got into the um, comic book characters. Actually, more than first was action figures. I'm not having anything, but then I got into what's called statues and busts. Like for example, I'll pull up real quick here for Marvel. This is one of my favorite lines. If you can't see this, this is an Enchantress statue. This is from Bowen Designs. Basically, he's the one line that I've collected until he shut down his business. So there's the Enchantress, and then there's the DC Batman black and white statues. So I'm holding this up because these are actually the smaller ones in my collection. Sort of sadly, I think about almost half my house is dedicated to my collection. I'll also have my garage as well as storage space for that. And then finally moved over into the physical media. In terms of the history lesson for people, I'm not sure when people started collecting, but once upon a time, there used to be DVDs. Okay, so if you grew up in that era. So that's when steelbooks first came out. So the G1 is a little larger. So this is, if you can't see, this is a DVD steelbook. I'm sorry?
Yeah, there you can see it just a little bit there.
Okay, well, thank you. So this is a Incredible Hulk G1 steelbook, from Future Shop. They were, I'm not sure if they're still around, but they were based in Canada. And then here in the US is Best Buy. And this one is the Star Wars, the Clone Wars. Again, if you can't see it, I'm trying to hold it or I can here. So if you see a price tag, it was actually didn't cost $51.42. It says that for some reason, but back then things were a lot more affordable than they are now. So those were the G1 first generation in terms of the DVD steelbooks, there. And then now in terms of more recently, for me, what I've in terms of what I've purchased recently here in the US, this is the Wicked for Good, I guess part 2 steelbook. Zootopia 2. And this one is just recently off eBay, but I got below retail, which including shipping is the Moana 2 steelbook on there. So that's sort of my journey to collecting media, and obviously I'm into the premiums as well. But we can definitely, I'll pause here because obviously I'm already started a lot. I can ramble on and on, but definitely if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Nate, if you want to moderate that. But lately I've gotten back to full 360 to comics again, and I showed you earlier a few minutes ago about the raw books. But now essentially, I again, coming back to things, now the whole is now being what's called slabbed comics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being graded. So like I've been collecting some of this now. I'm not sure you can see, but this is basically a cover of the Time Variant Authority. For those of you who saw the Marvel TV series Loki, they mentioned this as a cover of Miss Minutes on here. I'm not sure if you can see it. I can't see it from my side.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, okay, so let me see this. Unless I turn off my blur, that's the only thing.
Yeah, I would say try to turn off the blur and see.
Okay, you're gonna see just a window, but
that's okay.
Bear with me. Where's my visual effects? Okay, so now it's like you see the mess. So hopefully you can see this.
Yep, okay, that's better.
This is that. So again, Virgin covers. So this is now Spider-Man, Mary Jane, but then no text. So this is these command, I guess, more money. And another one that I like, although this is not technically a Virgin cover, but this is what's called a sketch cover.
Yep.
This is Daredevil. So that's my 360 now coming back into comic books, which was my first love on there. So I guess now I'm not sure if anyone saw, since I'm not sharing, but just again, real quick, Moana. Zootopia 2, Wicked for Good, and then the G2 or G1, excuse me. This is a oops, is this right? Nope, upside down.
Upside down.
Yep, Star Wars Clone Wars. And there's only one. There was a Blu-ray Steelbook version, but it was not made in the U.S. or Asia. It was actually made in, I think, the Netherlands. I have an open copy of that. And then this is again the Incredible Hulk.
Nice.
And then again, if you didn't see the statues, this is the Enchantress I was talking about. Bowen Designs. See again, Batman black and white statue. And I didn't have, but I'll just pull it here real quick. They're no longer in business because Gentle Giant Studios, Star Wars.
Oh, I didn't know they went out of business.
Yeah. So they were bought by Diamond Distributors, and then Diamond went bankrupt.
Yeah.
And then the company that bought Diamond basically then shut down Gentle Giant Studios.
Oh, that's horrible. I remember them doing all those Star Wars ones forever because there was a big competition between them and Sideshow. Because I'm a statue and toy collector as well, and it was always a fun time trying to see who's going to do the better one. And then you started having all these statue companies kind of show up and trying to do like Premium One, PCS, and I remember getting all those Diamond Gallery ones way back when, right when they were bringing them out, because I had like Lady Death and stuff like that, which is what I collect. But it was always fun because they always were intricate, but you had to be so careful with the PCS line. The Bowen line was so much better. The statue just looked better than the PCS line. And I think Diamond knew that too, because they knew everybody kept buying the Bowen over theirs.
Yep, 100%.
So the fun part, right, was you said you're a comic collector, and that's kind of a thing that I've seen among most of us collectors, right, is that we collect not just premium, media and stuff like that. We collect many things, right? Whether it be comics, toys, statues. I've got friends who collect cars. Guess what? That's nice. They have a lot of cars, but you know what? I don't have that kind of space. And I got kids. So guess what takes over all of my spending? My kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always fun. But the nice thing, right, is you were showing the slabs from CGC, right? And that's a big avenue for comic collectors today, right? Is making sure you protect what you have, right? And I'm a Silver Age and Bronze Age collector, and I have some Golden Age too. But a lot of it is I've sealed them to protect them, right? Versus the value of those. Now, some of them are worth decent money, like, my Green Lantern 76, and I've got, some Neil Adams Batman stuff and like that. But it's really for the protection of the things. And you brought up the Virgin and the variants, right? And that's kind of the market that we live in today, right? In the comic industry, is that everybody's going after the variant, whether it be the 1 in 10, the 1 in 25, 150, 100. I've even seen the 1 in 500, right? And those command a extreme premium on those, especially at the conventions, right? Conventions are always even worse because there's 8,000 variants at the convention and everybody wants it, right? But that's always the funny part, right? Is the old comic book collectors are always watching the market, right? They're looking at these saying, will these last, right? Will the value last? For example, Logan, when the movie Logan came out, the X-23 first appearance, right, was around $300, $400 at value. Once the movie came out, it jumped up to $1,000. So Silver Age buddies and me, we were like, all right, let's make a bet how long that lasts, right? And the reason is because modern age books go up and down, with the market based upon TVs, movies, and shows. Now it's back down to $500, right? And so I would say, like, for collectability, right, collect what you enjoy, right? Not just because of what's out there, right? Enjoy what you collect out there. Like, I collect original comic art and in covers and things like that. And I enjoy that more than comic books some days because of the sheer point that this is the cover, right, of the comic, or this is an internal page of a comic book. Um, and the comics I still buy, but the fun part, right, is that everybody can collect what they like and enjoy it. So, you brought up a thing that I haven't seen in a while with that Incredible Hulk, right? With that Future Pack, because those steel books back then were a big one. I never saw those, right, where I was living, because I was living overseas. But we would have the hard boxes from Germany, right, for DVDs, and we would have um, the metal packs, as they were called there, right, in Germany and in the different countries. And it was always fun to see, and I always love them. Still have a ton of them today. Um, I don't want to ask, as you've been a collector from that time period to now, have you seen like the actual physical piece get better or worse, and the actual steel books themselves?
Um, in terms of, you mean the quality?
Quality, quantity, kind of things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is going to be probably part of a rabbit hole here, but let me go ahead and let me unblur myself again, because I can at least give you a visual comparison between the two sizes. All right. So this is G1, this is G2. I mean, if you really talk about the difference, it's just about an inch in height, right? Because the width is the same.
Correct.
Okay, so I would say originally, in my opinion, the quality of the steel book for like G1 is sturdier. Nowadays, I'm not sure if you've seen where this, I mean, they're more malleable or pliable. You can twist it almost. And especially if there's air, you can press in and all of a sudden, like, hear it, like sometimes you see some of these plastic wrapping have like, dotted holes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, that's air, and all of a sudden you can squeeze, like, air comes out. Again, people collect for different reasons. I generally don't open mine. Again, this is from the purest this is a particular perspective where, just like back in when I was collecting, you said about comic books and you slab them, or you want to protect them with bags and boards, right? You want to protect your investment. And also in the event at some point, if you decide to, sell them or resell them, usually anything that's more preserved or unopened, sealed, will have either retain most of its value or even higher as compared to an open copy, right? That's been viewed or used. That's from my experience, and this is the same, obviously, from my learning from action figures. I mean, even the quality of the cards make a difference in terms of the corners and everything. So, but again, is a question, as you said earlier, Nate, about are you buying to collect, to invest, into resale, or are you buying it for the pure enjoyment of it? And for those who buy for the pure enjoyment, yes, I've seen many post videos when they get their premium, steel books from whichever retailer, and they open them, right? And that's fine. As I said, as long as that's what you're buying it for, that's the important thing, right? Because it's your money, and you're the collector, and it's not for any of us to to say what's right or what's wrong, on that. But hopefully I answered your question, Nate. I mean, I would probably say right now the quality of steelbook is not as good. I mean, obviously, you were mentioning metal packs. That's also a softer metal,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, because I've collected the ones in the heyday when almost everyone was making steelbooks because it was so popular, right? Netherlands, I mentioned Netherlands. Amazon was like, you could buy Amazon Italy, Amazon UK, Amazon Germany, a lot of different versions, that were available. And I think indirectly that oversaturated the market from a collector's perspective. And some of us, like myself, being either a completist or a purist, it's like, oh yeah, I'll buy multiple versions of the same title from different countries, just to have. I think France was FNAC. I think Germany was, aside from Amazon Germany, there was, I think, Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
but there's another company, I believe, Media something. Um, you know,
Media Vincent. That's the other one I use from Germany.
okay. So, but yeah, so
And that's kind of the thing is I was noticing, right, as I've been collecting, right, because it went from I'm I'm old, right, so I went from, we'll say, 8 millimeter days, right, where I collect 8 millimeter and Super 8, all the way through Beta, VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. I collect all spectrums, right, but around horror as a genre, right, for a reason. Because I like the quality of things, right? But with steel books, what I've noticed, right, and this is something I've always had fun with, right, is how they're made, right? The actual physical piece of them being made, right? Like you open it up and there's an image that's been printed onto metal, right? And then pushed, and, then you have an internal case that holds it. It was a big different than when we had the Amaray case, right? Because the Amarays we've seen in multiple ways, right? Where it's a recycled one versus a standard one versus you get those ones that's got three or four discs inside of it, right? Because it's got the flipper storage in it. But I always enjoyed the steelbook because of that perspective, right? It's more of a premium concept than just your normal one, right? And we were thinking about this too, right? Or like embossed versus debossed, right? Lenticular slips versus quarter slips, right? Those kind of things, right? Like we've seen a lot of things change in the premium world, right? Because WWA versus WEA, right? Worldwide, exclusives, and then exclusives to just certain companies, right? With their steel books and what they do. That makes the collectability definitely higher, right? When it's an exclusive that you can't just easily get versus the same steelbook that's been put into every box set out there in the sun, right? Um, but here's the catch, right? Is that same steelbook has been put in, there's a lot of collector items that go with that, right? Like, you start looking at the different versions of that, whether it be a Manta Ray, Manta Lab, right? You start looking at UHD Club, you start looking at all these other companies, right? And what I like about UHD Club, right, it's a digipack versus a steelbook, but you still feel like it's like a premium, like unboxing for me because I love the wooden box set, right? And that's for me is always the display piece is that you see how the steelbooks are, you see how the wooden boxes are, and you see how we go through this. But embossed versus debossed, I want to kind of go into that one a little bit because that's a thing that's been huge in steelbooks lately. You see it a lot, not just in premium, but you're actually seeing it in retail as well. So, so what do you prefer when you're going through these?
well, I would say for me, in terms of, I mean, I'm actually agnostic when it comes to either or. Like the ones I just showed, from the Wicked and the Zootopia, um, even I think the Clone Wars, that the G1. I mean, they're just flat, right? It's just the image, and for me, I lean more towards, do I like the cover
Mm.
as opposed to how does it feel, the texture, right? Whether it be raised or pushed in. Um, well, I mean, there are some. I mean, I remember there was one by Film Marina. It was I'm sure was it the Prometheus or the Covenant series where they had one that was really raised. It was but it was beautiful, right? Because I mean, really in terms of that texture, I mean, it stuck out. Like the
Mhm.
face, I forgot the character's name. Um, but basically one of the founders, the giants from that.
All the engineers.
The engineer, thank you. Yeah, and it was just their face was just protruded out. I was like, wow. I mean, how to make it like that, and then the manufacturing process, in terms of how that, for me, that was curious, and I understood why that particular version um, commanded more of a higher price on the secondary market. Um, I was fortunate to get a copy through the Maniacs box set.
You lucky. I've been after that for a long time.
The box set or just that particular
The
copy?
Maniacs box set of it. It's just hard to find now in secondary. Now
Uh,
without a pretty premium on the Alien Covenant one.
I mean, again, I don't know where things stand. I mean, I occasionally will still, like Sunday evenings for me is my music night, and when I'm listening to music, I basically surf eBay. Um, I haven't seen, I mean, there's a couple US sellers that's been selling some of the Film Arena premium editions, and they're selling at well below what I know what I paid, for them through group buys here. So I'm assuming that person is probably not making money, and that's another topic we can dive into
Mhm.
later on if you like, Nate, in terms of where the market is now compared to where it was when I first started, or when you first started. You know, it's to me is like it's between what streaming media has done as well as supply chain and licensing and cost. It's basically really made you know the the current members of people who collect physical media more of a very niche market compared to what it was before, back in the days when there were just so many copies being printed out. you know like I still have ton of copies of Avengers Age of Ultron when it was at Best Buy when they were still selling like, their exclusives, um on that. But I would probably say I'm a little surprised. I know there's some grails, quote unquote, per se, that term. I didn't realize, like, Alien Covenant, the Maniac box. I didn't think Maniac boxes were still one of them. Uh,
Yeah, I think what's happened, right, is you've had, well, for example, you came in a lot earlier than I did, say into Media Psychos, right? And I never didn't even understand the concept of a group buy until I joined MP, right? And it's because prior to that, it was always just I collected what was premium of things that I liked, right? Like, so if it was Dragon Ball, right? The Dragon box sets that came out from Best Buy, right? And the Japanese ones that came out. I would buy those premium level box sets, but nothing like Film Arena, Manta, UHD, even HD Zeta, right? Those kind of, I had never collected any. I didn't even know what they were till I kind of joined. But what really got me into MP, right, was I saw the mag set of Anaconda, right? And I saw an unboxing. I'm like, ooh, I like that. That's got everything like, between the movies, the coin, the collectability, all the collector things, the cart. I'm like, dude, that's like an all-in-one box. And Best Buy was doing some of that stuff, right? You would get those occasionally through them, but not to the level that the group buys would do. Um, and so that kind of got me into the market. But looking at the market now versus then, right, trying to come in 5, 6 years later, to when some of these were put out, you might have missed the mark right now, unless like for me, I always recommend go to Master Blaster. He might have something. He might have something still out there. I always recommend that to everybody, on the forum for that reason because he might have it. But there's some of these like Maniacs box sets, some of these older things like the HD Zeta Hobbit trilogy, right? Like that's getting a little harder to find. Like things are starting to slowly, they're already out of print, but they're starting to like creep out of the market, right? As we would say.
I
But
would
they're
question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nate, but I would question whether it's really creeping out of the market or if basically now the people who own them are just there's no interest in people buying them. I mean, that's where again most people when they want to resell, they want to recoup what they paid for,
correct.
right? That's the minimum that they want. That's a target. But with I'm not whatever platform, whether you use eBay, Mercari, there's going to be fees. And I think if I'm not mistaken, for eBay currently is about 15 or 16%.
Correct.
So so if you paid $100, I'm using simple, then to break even, you need to sell for almost 120. And that's even break even, and that's if there's interest from people to buy it. Um, You know, and I think now more again, this is maybe I haven't looked into this, but you know, obviously when the tariffs came in place, that put a damper on international purchasing.
Yeah, especially for us collectors who collect things outside of here as well, right? Um, Collecting the collectibles, the toys and stuff that I do, right? The tariff ended up putting 10, 20% on top of what you're already buying. And if you're buying a $300 toy, right, you start adding the tariff on top of it, plus your taxes on it, because if it's a US based, right,
Mhm.
company, you're not going to buy as much, right? Because it's costing you out at that point, right? It's like something that used to be $200 is now 250 to 260. So you're really thinking about, do I really want to make this purchase or not, right? Um, and that does affect it. It really does affect it, especially depending on what country you're buying something from. Um, but as far as the value, right, of these things, I think one reason why we might be getting to the point where we're at is people don't want to sell it no more, right? Is that people that collecting it have said, nope, I'm good. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it in my collection because I don't. It's at the point where I like my collection the way it is, and that's 100% okay, right? Because you bought it, it's yours. You don't have to resell it. But I think people are getting to that is that they want to get the best value out of it if they are going to resell, but people are happy with their collections. I, I don't I don't even remember the last time I sold one of mine, right? Because I enjoyed in my collection from the collectability piece.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's why we're seeing some things kind of like dry up, right? Because they're like, nope, I'm going to hold on to this, or they're holding on to it for a longer period of time, right? To see how that market value is going to be on it later down the road, which I don't blame them. Because if you watch eBay, for example, right, when you have a new premium come out, you're going to see tons of copies of it out there on eBay, right? You'll see somebody, they'll take a one click, they'll break it apart, sell out, the lenticular, the full slip, quarter slip if it has one, and then they'll sell it just the OC box itself. Um, but then you'll see that same OC box actually for sale as well. But then give it a year or so, and you'll start seeing that number of that go down. So I think some of it's just timing too.
Well, yeah, I remember back in the days when, again, you know, things sold out, whether it be Nova Media, you know, well, before Wheat there was Kimchi DVD, right?
Mhm.
I mean, Wheat is actually the producer, and back then Kimchi DVD was a distributor, right? So whereas like currently, like you were mentioning, Manta is the producer, and then right now Collectong is the distributor, uh,
Correct.
you know, for Manta, and so. Um, I remember the days when we were trying to gauge when the release was available for the group buys. Like, okay, when are they going to go live? And they did not anticipate the high volume of traffic on their sites, and then it crashed the servers. And when it was stuck, like, oh, we couldn't even order, or we had to wait forever to see if the product that we in our cart could be purchased or not. Uh,
Mhm.
so it was a frustrating experience. Um, Going then, but that was when the heyday when everyone was going after the premiums. Not everyone, but I'm just saying that it was very popular compared to now. And you had your speculators and your scalpers that essentially use on eBay would post pre-sales because
Mm.
they were able to secure a copy, and then now they're trying to sell already at markup, right? Because they know how limited it was, you know. And that's where there's been conversations obviously within this forum and elsewhere about, well, shouldn't the retailers make enough to satisfy everyone? But it's like at the same time, do you really want to dilute the market? Because part of it is being collectible, right? You have these limited numbered editions for a reason, and just like the bone designs, um,
Oh yeah.
like the one I just showed you was limited to the Enchantress is 750, right? But when Bowen first started and he got the Marvel license, his bust basically he made between 5,000 and 10,000, and that diluted. And so now, if you want to go buy those certain characters, you can pretty much buy them less in retail because there's so much that were made and so much out there. But now for the ones that, like the one I just showed you, because they're much more limited, sometimes now by decreasing, supply, you actually inflate or create demand.
Correct. Like for example, the Bowen did one of Wolverine, right? The Weapon X one. And I was after that one for a long time because it was limited, I think, to 500 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Couldn't find it. Nobody could, you couldn't order it either because Diamond wasn't allowed to reorder. Once you got your order in, that was it. They wouldn't let you reorder it. And I was really frustrated, especially when I was a comic book owner, shop owner. So I said, okay, I got to find this Weapon X somehow. And the only way I could do it at that point was friends that were comic book owners, shop owners, or eBay, right? And I'm looking at eBay and it went like $300. And I know the value of that is not it. So I just waited, right? And then when Bowen went out, that became a $40 Weapon X that I bought, off of eBay because the value wasn't there no more because there were just so much in the market. But then also, if you have, say, a different statue, right? For example, if Sideshow is doing one, you've got Bowen, you've got a PCS version from Diamond Direct, right? Are they similar? Which one's the best, right? And that's what you'll pay for a premium when it's good. When it looks bad, right? And that I've seen a lot of ones like
Yeah.
especially from PCS for theirs. But that one was a harder one for me to get because of the supply and demand for it, right? Is a lot of people wanted it. There wasn't many of them out there. But then Diamond ends up selling everything out, right? And so everything goes out. So I said, all right, let me try to buy it. And so I was able to get one at less than retail. But I was happy to see Bowen change their market strategy right before they closed to, instead of the 7,000 piece version, right? They went to the 500 because that collectability piece, because then you feel like you really got something, right? You've got something that is very limited in your hands. And it's a nice feeling. I mean, just because there's not so many of them. I mean,
I would say part of that, I'm not sure how much of it was strategy as opposed to just cost, because I think I'm not just, quick context, Bowen had to almost, I'm not sure it was every year or every 2 years, he had to re-up his license agreement with Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And that kept going up. And then the production costs over in China also increased. And of course, that ends up being passed on to people like you and I. And, you're going from busts that were, originally retail between probably $20 to $40 are now going up to almost $100 just for the busts alone. The statues were going, I think by the time, 100 something now to over almost between 200 and 300. So part of it was then, who can really afford to now spend that kind of money? Sideshow was by far a higher premium. They were more expensive than I remember than Bowen Designs. I think there was another one that was, I forgot that, not PC. Diamond Select, no offense, they had just really,
they were junk.
Yeah, just really crappy product. But there was a Japanese one beginning with a K, Kobo.
Oh, Kubiak. What was it? It's
but you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
And they came out with some very interesting stuff, but also I would say I'm not sure they're premium, but they're, up there as well in pricing. So you're talking all these options, and, when Sideshow is costing $500 or $600, it's like, how much where am I going to spend my money? And then now, like, and I always have enjoyed the, Bowen Design, not just because Randy he did some of the sculptures, but the sculptures he contracted also did really great stuff in terms of the look and feel for breathing life to certain characters. So that's what I enjoyed. But again, as you said, that takes up a lot of physical space. Compared to comic books and compared to now. You're talking about, for me, I said before, half my house is basically dedicated to my collection. They're just lying around, in the boxes, whatever. Even there's just so much because back then I was buying everything. Again, same title, but I'll get the version from Germany. I get the version from France. I get the version from. I didn't collect the one from Australia. JBL, I think it was the retailer for Australia. I didn't do that, but you know, and that's it becomes very expensive hobbies, or vices or addictions, or however you want to call it.
Collector's mentality.
But we enjoy it, and that's what whether it raises our serotonin level, whatever. But this is what motivates and drives us. Just like you mentioned, like Bowen Designs, that's my preference, and maybe yours as well. It may not be for others, and that's okay. So whatever money you're spending on to buy, whether you like back to the steel books, whether you're going through collect on for Manta, to Wheat, to Blue Fans, well, HTZ, that's something we can just dive into in terms of what happened to some of the premium retailers nowadays, and Film Arena, when they were around, I think they had some really good product,
And that was the one thing, right? And I remembered Kotobukiya finally for the Japanese one.
Okay.
But that was the issue, right, that we had in the States around statues is that, right? We would have the Bowen, the Claiborne Moore, right? He would do his. And then you would have PCS, Diamond Direct. The Select was always horrible, which nobody really bought. Was the pricing, right? Like when you got a Sideshow, or even now the Premium One Studio, right? Those ones are nice that they have out. That it's going to cost, but the quality that you're going to get too, right? That was the collectability, I think, one of the big ones. And then size. You were saying it takes, a lot of room up in your house. Statues do, right? And that's why I've actually noticed a lot of people that they've turned from being statue owners to being toy collectors, right? For that reason. I can't put 80 statues in my house, but I can put 80 action figures, right? Or NECA figures, or, a version of that. Like I collect Mezco, right? For that reason. Because they're higher end action figures, but they're not statues. And so you can still move them and display them the way you want. But at the same time, then it's also how many boxes do I have to keep in my house kind of situation, right? And that's something we all deal with as collectors is I'm going to say boxes in general. It's like, how many do you keep versus how many do you get rid of, right? And that's always a hard thing.
Well, and that's where I'll be slightly transparent. Well, no, I'm being transparent here. As I was mentioning earlier about thoughts and prayers, right? Early on, I'm not going to go into detail, but pretty much since COVID, there's been some things going on, with me just in terms of the physical, the mental, the emotional, and it didn't really hit me until earlier this year when one of my former coworkers, who's also in Texas, we just met virtually all the time, but we stayed in contact, and he's just a year older than me, and he had a stroke. I found out he had a stroke that left him temporarily paralyzed right side of his body, and fortunately with rehab he has most of it back. It took him about 6 months. His face is, I guess, still unable to move, but it just made me sort of realize, like, for all the joys that we've had all these years collecting, we can't take it with us.
That's correct.
And that was now for me, I'm appreciative for the time that I'm here. I don't know how much longer I still have, hopefully another few decades. Obviously, we all hope that, we all want that. But things happen. Right, as we know with some members in our community here, and we're just like stunned and shocked. And the thing is, for me, I don't think we want to take that for granted. So I'm grateful and joyful for what I have been able to collect. But at the same time, there may be a message somewhere down the road, whether it be from that incident with my former colleague. Maybe it's time to let some of this go. And that's now, for me, one of the things that's top of mind, this year that I'm leaning towards. So you and I can take this one offline, but when you're mentioning about the Maniacs box, things to plug your hole, so to speak, is like, yeah, we can definitely, because I just know for me, it's like, okay, I've enjoyed it, and maybe it's time I can let this go.
And I think that's what a lot of people do, right? Is they get to that point, right? Like, and I was the same way, right? Like I used to have tons and tons of stuff, right? And in this room, in this closet, in this thing, right? Like everything would be piled up. But did I really enjoy it? And so the realization came down to is what do I actually enjoy? Right. And that was my favorite part, was to find more enjoyment in the things that I'm actually doing. Right. And so I did. I let a lot of things go. Right. And you start prioritizing things in your life. Right. Like for me, buying a house. Right. I took priority over buying movies and games and toys and everything else. So you prioritize the things that are most important. You still enjoy what you have and you enjoy what's here, but it's different. And maybe it's one thing too, as since there's a lot of us that are older collectors that's been collecting for 10, 20, 30 years, right? Is that you start thinking about things like that, right? And of course, that's always going to be in front, right? Is the supply and demand of the things that we have versus what's new out there. So people are going to really be looking for those things. So it's going to be good out there. But there was one topic I wanted to get to, and you just hit on it a little bit, right? And that is, where did some of the premium retailers go, right? Because that, of course, drives the market as well, right? Like, for example, Film Arena, HD Zeta, and those kind, right? They've kind of been out of the market. Now, we all saw, what Film Arena had done a couple of weeks ago, right? Trying to resell some of those items that they had. And no, uh, we did not partake. For the reason being, right, is that we wanted to be cognizant of what's actually going on with our members in the forum. But I miss HD Zeta. I will say that formally, because I love the stuff that they did. But the question is where did they go, right? And are they going to come back one day? It's hard to say. So let me get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, this could be definitely a top of mind. Definitely want to spend good quality time discussing this, and I'm going to probably go down a few rabbit holes. I'm going to say and this will even go back not just to premium, but even the current retail environment in terms of some of the retailers. I definitely say in the US, definitely with Amazon and Walmart, definitely Amazon. They're artificially creating demand for no basically to and it just, between them and Walmart, since there's only two major players left who really are doing releasing steelbook titles. Target is a little bit, Barnes and Noble, but again, they're small. They're pop. When Best Buy, again, probably Best Buy left for good reason, because they realized it wasn't sustainable, the physical media, because again, part of it is taking up physical space in the store, and you want to focus on making profit, right? And again, you're now talking about physical media being only catering to certain people. That's been decreasing as streaming media becomes more popular there. So I would definitely, we'll touch base on Film Arena and HTZ. Don't forget, this will lead into that. But Amazon, one of the things that ticked me off was the fact, and they've done this, and I think Walmart as well, they feed on each other now. I mean, basically, their pricing, if you ever lowest, they're basically identical. When it's just a question of who has it in stock, at that point, to pre-order or anything. But I think this first started with, that I remember, and someone can correct me if I'm mistaken, was the Deadpool and Wolverine steelbook.
Oh, yeah.
That was first pre-order. I mean, I couldn't believe it was like asking $60-something for it. Just a regular steelbook. Again, not premium, nothing special, just a regular steelbook, and pre-order, and it sold out. And now what a lot of studios are doing is like, okay, we sell out. We may make more copies. We don't know, but that seed, like, okay, because we're not guaranteeing we're going to reprint this, overinflates demand. People are paying above premium now for just to get a copy, because there's no certainty when it is going to be re-released. And guess what? They are re-released sometimes a few months or even 6 months down the line. They re-release them again. And now the people who've paid above premium are like, what's the F?
Yeah.
You know, they're now stuck paying double the price of what was original retail for. Or the fact, like for Amazon, I mentioned about Deadpool and Wolverine, it's now dropped to, the normal, supposedly normal price of around 40, per copy. And now there's just so much surplus that people who are selling on eBay, can barely sell for even 30 now for a brand new copy. So this is where they're just overdoing this, and studios are doing the same thing. This happened last year with Master and Commander 4K Steelbook, the Tombstone 4K Steelbook, the Kingdom of Heaven, and they just print a limit supply, or supposedly a limit supply, and it just sells out. And then people want it, but they can't get it because it's sold out. However many supposedly copies they allocated, and again, just amps up, creates this demand, and then later on they re-release and print out tons of copies. This happened also with Tron.
Oh yeah, when they first put it out,
and Tron Legacy, and just like, and now because there's so many copies available, same with Master Commanders, like people can't even get rid of. There's the surplus for below, have to sell at loss now. But this is what both retailers and the movie studios are doing. I'm not saying it's conspiracy. I don't know that. But the fact that they seem to be creating this demand artificially, right? And it still happens. I just showed you the copy of Zootopia 2, right? I didn't get it through because it sold out. I was very fortunate to have seen it. Actually, I was surprised they're usually this reseller is on. Well, technically they're funded. I think they're owned by Sony Studios. But I'm not trying to promote them by any means, but they're called Please Rewind, and they have they have their eBay store on and they also, I guess now when Best Buy said allow people to have stores, that's how I found it, and I was able to get it at basically retail price. So again, this just, you have to find all these different mediums, because Amazon, Walmart just sells out so quickly on the very popular titles. So the theme was, again, artificially creating demand, right? This leads to me now to not to HD Zeta, but to Film Arena. Film Arena, and I will still say, created a really nice quality product. I really enjoyed. I'm saying past tense, and I'm a completist, so I was there, and I'm not sure. Their first title was As Above, So Below, horror movie.
Oh yes.
And they came out with the Amaray version, I believe, in the slipcase, but they came out with the first steelbook, and that was limited to 100 copies. So I'm not trying to boast or anything, but I got mine. So back then, they didn't put out as much premium stuff in the goodies that they did before, the Maniacs and all that kind of stuff. But that's how they started, and they came out with, to me, a quality product. And was it worth the extra money, for fees? Yes. Now, they got, in my opinion, because of the timing, they when they became available, this was like over 10 years ago, probably about 10 years ago when they first started. That was more, again, I say that the sort of the golden era of steelbook collecting. Mm-hmm. Everyone was wanting it. Everyone's either scalping or whatever, but there was just demand for products, regardless of which region, regardless of which country or which retailer. And I think Film Arena capitalized on that and also created demand by letting people, hey, if you buy from us directly, that you not or choose to be a member, you get designate numbers, all that sort of stuff. But it's a commitment, right? And people were willing to go for it. And in that sense, that's it. They created that demand, but they also put out a product that justified it, or at least made it worth it for people to pay that premium cost. Now I'm moving forward to where that they kept that arrogance or that cockiness, and and ultimately, I'm not saying that in itself led to their current state, their downfall, so to speak, but I think it sort of may have inflated their business model.
Yeah.
Because go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can see that, right? Because I saw when I came in, right? Film Arena was live and well in 2021, 2022, right? They were putting out products, they were doing things. And then you start seeing the quietness come, right? Like the releases that were not coming out, right? Especially on time as they were agreeing to. Things are getting delayed, not by months, but by years, right? And the community saw that. You were talking about their business model, right? That's not the first people to do that, right? Like we've seen people do that too, where they'll inflate what they're doing to make an artificial demand on things, rope everybody in, and then, all right, now I don't deliver, right? You can't do that though in our community, right? Because everybody's going to know real fast what's going on. Internet is a wildfire, right? You get on the Reddit, you get on to anywhere in the world, you're going to see all the stuff that you've ever wanted to see about Film Arena too, right? And it's good, bad, and different. But also what it comes down to is why would you treat your customers like that, right? The people that have been supporting you for a long time. Extant Revenge, right? Been supporting them like you for a very, very long time since the beginning. And it's kind of a shot, right? It's kind of a shot into the face a little bit of, you've been a long time supporter and then you're not getting help, getting support for products that, for this company. It puts a really bad taste in your mouth. And would you go back and do it again? Most people say no. Right.
No, I
People,
think at this point, I think the mentality, it's a sentiment. And I'm saying I believe this, but this is just me, my jaded perspective right now. It's basically, F you and F off.
yeah. And that's the catch-22, right? Is that's kind of the situation that we've got, right? Is like burn me once, okay, there's a mistake made. Keep burning me 2 or 3 times, and we're done. That dance is over, right? And we're not going to be doing things like that anymore. But that's the catch, right? It's like we just got to be smart about what we do.
Well, I mean, there's that U.S. here in the U.S. Like there's that saying, right? I think was it, fool me once, shame on you.
Shame on me. Yeah.
Fool me, shame on you. So, but I mean, just going back in terms, yes, I mean, I would say that Film Arena has taken their core base for granted. I mean, yes, there's the community chat, right? But the community is actually a very small segment of the customer base that they have who purchase directly from them. I mean, those are the ones that really got burned. I mean, for here, again, this is in the last couple years before they really just disappeared, so to speak. You meant, for Extant Revenge, I mean, he was the glue, he was the liaison between, us in terms of the collectors, the community here at MP and Film Arena. And, my understanding, and I'm sure hopefully if he watches this, he can, correct me. They dictated in terms of, hey, we'll allocate to your, for your group buys but there needs to be a minimum in order to purchase for us to do so. So that's where essentially for those of us who are, again, completists or purists, you had to now commit to now joining. There was this tier system. I forgot. It was like platinum number or whatever. It's like, because, we were guaranteed a number, but the condition was we would sign up for basically purchasing
Everything.
the title, which I did, because, I enjoyed their, again, they came out when they did come out, it was quality product, until the last one, which was to me a sham, was, I think the last release was Predator, which became discless essentially, but they still pay an arm and a leg for it. So, I mean, to basically, as you said, to put, to take us for granted and put that sort of condition in terms of, yeah, we'll do business, we'll help with your collectors, but you have to buy X number of copies from us, and only then will we, and there are times for certain titles, because not everyone wants those certain titles, where, Excellent Revenge was trying to say, hey, can anyone afford to buy an extra copy or something, right? Because if we didn't hit this quota, we wouldn't be able to basically, then Fumiya would just say, no, we're not gonna supply you with that title.
And that's a hard position to put in for anybody, like and it doesn't matter which company release, right? Is that right? Is it putting in for all in? Now there are companies like, right, you were all in for Film Arena, right? Because of the product, you knew what you were going to get. I'm the same way for like UHD Club, right? I know I'm the same thing I'm going to get every time with a wooden release, typically, or even a hard box. I know what I'm going to get. Even with our new relight media, right, that we're doing now, right? I'm all in. I love exactly what it's doing. So do I go in on all the things that to get my premium number to do all that? Yep, because I trust the brand, right? And that's what we all did. We trust the brands that we're into, and then get all the titles that they have, because we support them. Might not be always supporting the movie, right? It's about supporting the brand, and that's what we've kind of done. But it's hard, because when you do that, you don't want to be burned either, right? And when you start burning your customer base up on things like what Film Arena did, that's worse, right? That means people for years and years and years that supported you are now gone. So your customer base is gone. You burnt everybody out, and now you're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do with part two.
What I never understood is the fact that, to me, how hard it would have been just to be transparent, and just own up either to what happened, either that you overcommitted to certain titles, or certain that you thought you would get approval from the studios to get licensing or the images or whatever, and then basically it fell through. The deal fell through, whatever, right? Because again, we don't know what happened because of the details, but again, it's supply chain. All of it, like we were talking about Bone Designs, it has to be licensing. You have to get permission from the studios to be able to print certain things, use certain imagery, even the discs. Everything has to be approved by the studio. And if they're putting extra conditions that make it more difficult or make it less profitable, right, to make it, and you had, even though you already have put out, oh, we're going to release these titles, right? Here's pre-order and stuff, and just come up and say, yeah, we're having, issues with our contract negotiation with the studios. At least then we will understand. At least then say, or also say, hey, we'll, for those, if we can't get it done, we'll refund you the money. But there was just basically zero communication. It just basically, thank you for the money, and just radio silence. That's my understanding of what happened. I'm very putting it in a very nutshell, in a 1.5 minute nutshell of what happened. There's probably a lot more that's in there that we may never know. But again, to me, then that's a reflection of either leadership over at Film Arena, or ownership, or both. To me, it's about, I always say, just, if it's a mistake, if it's something that happened, just own it and let
Exactly.
people know. Let them make the decision whether they because again, at the end of the day, you said customers. It's a two-way street, and it's about trust. That's the collateral here. I buy from you because I trust that you've made a good product. I've seen it. I like it. But at the same time, if you're going to take that trust and take that for granted, not even, talk to me or talk to the people who basically have made you profitable or kept you in business, then I would say, yeah, shame on you. And then somehow you think 2-3 years later, without really not even an apology, then to me it's like, yeah, you basically burned those bridges, and whatever they may have been justifiable reasons. I won't know, but you never communicate that to us. And that to me, then again, is now about respecting your customers. That you couldn't even take the time to write and explain what happened.
I mean, that was the big thing, right? Is communications 101. That's in any business, period, right? If you communicate, most people will understand. They will, they'll let it go, right? You just keep it, communicate, keeping it out there, right? Like, hey, we're running into this issue, or hey, we weren't able to get to this because of this reason, or because of licensing or something like that. That goes a long way, right? Just letting us know versus radio silence. Radio silence is what gets everybody aggravated and mad because they don't know what's going on, especially when you've invested right into these things, right? It's your job as the seller to give us updates as we go, right? If you do not, that's on you, right? And then you don't get to say a word, right? Because you decided to ghost everybody on it. I mean, I will say, like, even for HD Zeta, right? AC Zeta said, at this time, we're not doing anything. At least they were open and honest about it. They said, we're not doing anything at this time. Okay, great. You know, Phil Marino was a 180 of that, right? There was no communication, there was nothing going on. And that kind of hurt a lot of people. It hurt their, I'm saying not hurt their feelings, but it hurt, the support that they gave them for so long, which is sad. Um, and then we were talking about Predator, right? Changing from having the disc to being discless, right? And still putting out the product. And I get it, right? Because they put a lot of money into that. Most people have already paid for the group buy a long time ago, right? And so they're still going to put out the actual product. But it's like if you didn't have the licensing for the disc, well, then don't advertise it with the disc. I'm okay with discless. I mean, that's for me. I mean, like Creator Era. I love Creator Era. They're discless, and it's a nice collector's edition box that doesn't have any. I'm okay with that because you're honest and upfront. Blue Fans does it too, right? Um, but it's because they're putting the effort into the actual item, the box, the collector pieces, because they already know you have the steelbook. Half the time, people have the steelbooks already; they bought them, so they're like, "Here's the premium box to go with that steelbook that you already have." But if you don't have it, right? We do know that there's a lot of people that keep putting out the same thing, right? Like every company that I've seen so far have done a Dark Knight trilogy, right? So you've had that throughout the different groups. Some of the steelbooks are the same, right? You can always slide that steelbook, an extra steelbook out into another box if you want, or if you bought the individual steelbook when it first came out from retail. Um, and I'm okay with that because it's honest, right? You're being honest with us and letting us know as we're going through this process, right, of what this actually the item is. But don't promise that you're going to sell something and then don't sell it, right? Like if you're saying that you couldn't get the licensing for the disc, great. Then the cost should come down, right? Because that's part of the cost that you paid with the group buy. So you should be giving a partial refund to the people who did that, right? Especially if that was your expectation, right? Because we all know how regions are, right? 4K's region free. Doesn't matter where you go. You just have to get the licensing to do the 4K. But Blu-rays is a different ballpark. Every region has their own.
Mhm.
right? So you have to go through those rules and those laws of what you can get it or not. And if you can't, okay, then just go with a 4K, right? And that's okay with most people. But what they found, right, is that not everybody's a 4K watcher yet, right? There's still a lot of people still watching Blu-ray. And so that kind of lets down those Blu-ray collectors at the same time when they don't get the disc, right? If they don't already have it.
Yeah, I mean, we may never know. And I mean, I know we talk, and I will get to HDZ in a bit. I haven't forgotten about that. But I mean, since we're starting with Film Arena, and I'm just gonna name a couple others. And again, whoever I was watching or listening, I mean no disrespect, but I'm just gonna call it out from a region perspective. Something seems to be going on. Maybe as I'm mistaken, but in Europe, because this is also happening, not just Film Arena, but I would even say Cinema Museum. You know, I mean, you're talking about now I think what Poltergeist is, and it's like, when did I'm part of that group, but it's like, but when did it's like, I look back, it's like, it's also years ago. And now you're finally being released. It's like, okay, you know, and, you know, they come up with a decent product as well. I think they're based in Italy. And then there's also another studio, another retailer, that I no longer, you know, do goodbyes for, is I think it's called Raro Films.
Rare films, yeah.
The first one they did release, because it's a movie that I really enjoyed, was Elvis, and I was very disappointed with the quality of their product. Like as you said, as a collector, I like things to be, you know, nothing's gonna be ever pure mint, right, or pristine, but you want to be as close as possible. And when I received my, you know, items, basically the material they used for the shrink wrap was basically some easily tearable cellophane.
Yeah.
And most of I was like, what the? I just pay how much? How many hundreds, you know, for this? And this is what I get. But by that point, I had already committed to, I think their second title was Black Adam. And I was like, yeah, but after that, I was like, I'm done. You know, to me, this is, you know, you have a good title or different titles than most, but when your product and what you're charging isn't what I hoped it would be, then it's like, yeah, to me, that's also, for me, it's a burn bridge. Because aside from commitment, you also should put out quality product for premium. You know, Cinema Museum does put out, you know, good quality product. I'm just, again, communication. I can't. I haven't paid as much close attention, but I don't think they've been as open with things as well. You know,
I think for City Museum, I mean, kind of knowing a little bit in the background, right, is they've only got so many people that they're using for that one. So their delays and whatnot, I can kind of understand because of the lack of, sometimes as many people to help build to do what they do. Communication is key, though, right? You've got to communicate and let people know what's going on.
yeah,
Rare films, that's a love-hate relationship for me, right? Because I bought their very first one, Nightmare on Elm Street, when it came out, the box set, right? And I gave it a hard review, right? Because of the quality of it, right? Because as a horror collector, we don't get many box sets, right? Like we get maybe a steel book or, maybe a collector's edition occasionally. But to get a premium, we were all jumping in on. And I gave that a very hard review because of the quality of material and everything else that was made. Like even the actual slips inside didn't fit correctly, right? And that was, I mean, if you go watch my video, you'll see what I'm talking about. But they did turn it around, right? And like their last couple of releases that I've got from them, right? Like the Shawshank Redemption, that was a phenomenal. That was an amazing set that they did. And they've got a lot better, right, over the time. They're a new company, so I expect them, they're going to have some issues, right, coming out of the gate. But at least they were open to it and, to fixing some of the issues that they saw and had. So I was happy to see that because they've kind of standardized. Like, remember when they first came out, the boxes weren't really standardized, right? Not like how we have with Manta and the other ones. But now they're kind of universal, It's got a flapper, it's got those things inside. There you go. Unless you buy like just the full slip version. I got the Great Gatsby, you know, perfect full slip, that they did, no problem. But they did have some issues. I mean, coming out of the gate on some of their stuff, and I mean, City Museum too. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like they definitely they've been through a lot too. But like I just got the Lost Boys in, right, and that's been a while. That's definitely been a while, right?
Yes.
But the catch 22 is we still got it. That was the difference between them and Film Arena, right? Is that there are people now having lots of issues because Film Arena said, okay, we're not going to give you a refund, but we'll give you credit in the store. That's wrong. 100% wrong in my book, right? It's like
100%.
you don't take somebody's money that they put into it and then say, oh, well, we're not going to give it back to you because we spent it on something else, and just give you credit in our store, which means you're still stuck buying from them, right? And that's very bad, right? And so, like I said, I'm a huge Cine Museum fan. I love it, especially their media book sets. I mean, that's what got me into Cine Museum was the Creep Show box set when it came out. Um, but they do need to communicate a little bit better. And I kind of wonder sometimes too if it's the barrier in between, right? People understanding the language and stuff, but definitely.
Yeah, but again, it's about ultimately we can say communication, but there's Google Translate, right? Where there's definitely translation tools. But it's also how you want to run a business. I understand, of course, you want to operate for profit. We all get that, But this is a very niche market now. But even back then when they first started, and they probably should realize that, if they're trying to make money off people who are spend hundreds of dollars on premium products, right? To me, then you do your, A/B quality control testing, to get it right and see maybe, your first few releases is going to out the gate. There's going to be your growing pains and lessons learned. And as long as you said Railroad Films was willing to improve, that's great. But for me, it left a sour taste where it's like, hey, there's other players and there's other players in town. Right.
Yeah.
And for Cine Museum, I mean, thank you for sharing the context. Now I didn't realize they were really that short staffed. But then I would counter that with for any of those premium retail or producers, don't overpromise and underdeliver, because that's the worst thing you can do to basically, again, from a business model perspective, you need to gain customer loyalty, not erode it or burn the bridge, so to speak. But again, that's my 2 cents on Europe. It is a shame with what happened, with Film Arena, because I mean, they had it. I mean, they were coming out with so many releases, and the Black Baron, the Maniacs. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying they're smart, but they created demand, and people were still, but they put out a good product where it justified it. Again, I'm a completist, so I have basically everything that they made. I just, again, when it became radio silent, and then what happened with the Predator, is like, yeah, you just don't treat your core loyal fan base this way.
No, you don't. I mean, and it really too that alienates not just that, but say you have a new person, right? A new person to just join our community, right? As a group buyer or premium collector, right? And the only thing they're actually trying to get was a Film Arena thing, right? And they get such a bad taste in their mouth that they stop collecting premiums in general, right? And that couldn't happen. People could get fed up with the way something was done and say, I'm done. I'm out of the market. I'm not going to do that. And that's a potential customer loss to any of the market, right? And to me, that's even worse, right? Because now you've taken the trust from somebody, you betrayed it, and now you've lost them. not just from Arena, but maybe lost them to everything else too, because they don't like what's going on with that market. You know, because money talks. People invest with their dollars right into what they want to, right? And if something's not going right, they might not invest no more. No matter how it is. And that's why I appreciate the companies, right, that are putting out stuff. I mean, I will wait forever as long as you tell me what's going on, right? I don't care. Like I've been waiting. Last year I was so excited when Manta said they're going to do the Crow, right? I've been wanting a Crow premium forever. Other than the Steelbook that came out for the anniversary. So I'll wait forever for that one to come out or even be announced to come out because I know they're going to put a good product out because Manta's been consistent, right? Is with their what they've done, right? Every time they've been consistent, or they'll tell you there's an issue, the Black Hawk Down situation, right?
Yep.
They said, hey, we screwed up the numbers. We got to redo it. OC collectors, you're not going to get yours till we get it done right. Got it. And then even with the full slip guys, they made sure everybody was squared away. Perfect way to do and handle business, right? It was, we screwed up, want to fix it. It's going to be delayed. Got it. That's all I need to know. I don't need all to know all the stuff in the background. All I need to know is that you're going to handle it and take care of it. And that was an easy one.
And that shifts to the flip side in terms of their, basically the model that others should aspire to, because like, well, yeah, it can't be any. I mean, it's no secret sauce. It is how you run a business. I mean, it's really it in terms of, and I know there's, in the community and the forum, there's always going to be people's wish list. Like you talk about the Crow, right? Everyone's going to have their say in terms of, yeah, we want this, want that. It'd be nice if this could be released as a premium and stuff. But, but ultimately, again, we talk about supply chain, right? One is studio licensing, right? Agreement. And then two, we go back to the premise of why are you in business? Ultimately, this is supposed to be for profit. So you can choose, if you choose independent titles or obscure ones or a certain particular genre, yeah, it will appeal to a certain fan base, but that might be a small percentage. And does that really justify the cost to make that, right? So that's from the business side of things. And I think sometimes, in my opinion, from what I read, I think some of the members have, don't think along that line. That ultimately these retailers or producers are in it for profit first, right? And if those titles that they get permission and the license to, those they hope will generate profit and also make the collectors and their customer base happy as well. It has to be a win-win, right? In my opinion, and that's why I think Manta Lab, whatever they're doing, I mean, yeah, they have their release schedules or to hopefully, and sometimes things get switched, whatever. But as you said, they communicate. They're upfront and very transparent. Great customer service. And in terms of packaging, I like the way they pack, as well. And that's another topic. If we have time, or we can do another part 2 in terms of, how
to package your items.
How they package your items. I mean, I definitely have an opinion of what I received recently from Bluefin. They're sometimes hit and miss. But speaking of which, we're comparing now. We're switching from Europe to Asia, right? You mentioned, HD Zeta. I mean, they're, again, we don't know if they're coming back or not. I was not a fan, although I know they did this, but between the silver and gold labels, to me, it's like just come out with one version. It's just like Film Arena coming out with regular and then Black Barons and then the Maniacs is like, okay, you want to create demand, fine, but then when you release the same titles, it's sort of retreading. Like what? I mean, to me, this is both Blue fans and HD Zeta and also Wheat. They retread a lot. I don't believe Manta has, or a Collecton has done that.
I can't think of one where they
Yeah,
went back and redone anything
yeah,
really. I
and so
mean,
that's what I like in terms of like, like I think the recent group I was, I think, Kill Bill. It's just they're getting whatever agreement with all these different studios, and that's awesome. Versus where like Blue fans, correct me if I'm wrong, they're mainly just their bread and butter is just the one crop with Marvel.
they do a lot with them. I mean, and what I noticed with Blue fans is that they do some of more of the obscure titles too, right? Like they'll do the one-offs here and there.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean I'm a complacent. The one that I will still say was a mistake that they did. R.I.P.D.
yeah, I think everybody agreed to that one.
But I have a copy because I'm a completist. So, but it's like that was a head changer. Like, what the f?
Nobody understood why. I don't
But
think on that
that's
one.
an obscure title, that's for
It
sure.
is. They do, and for me, I'm an obscure person because I do horror. I do genre. It's mostly horror. But then there's be ones I'll buy, right? Like we did the Breakfast at Tiffany's, right, through World Premium, right? I love that box set that they did on it. But then there'll be other things, right? We're like, okay, I'm a Manta completionist, right? As of when I started, I'm not going back and getting all the ones before I started, but I pretty much get every OC that comes out from Manta because I know the quality it's going to be. I just got The Godfather Part 3 in to finish up that trilogy. But that's the kind of the catch is like, the consistency you're going to have. What I would like to see, right? Like, I got the Top Gun in from Blue fans for both regular and Maverick. Those are great. Keep doing stuff like that, right? Like I enjoy that. But you were talking about markets, right? And that's kind of what it is, right? Top Gun Maverick just came out not too long ago, right? You sell to what's coming out. You sell what's out there normally. F1, dude, I loved F1. That was one of my favorite movies to watch last year. That's why I got the steelbook from overseas because A, we didn't get one in the U.S. and B, nobody else wanted to put it out.
Uh,
Um,
I don't mean there was a F1 Steelbook. I have one.
from the U.S.,
Yes.
but not initially. Not initially, right? Because it was initially only going to be put out in Europe.
I don't
Because
know, but it was released just like like I would love to see Sinners be a premium.
oh yeah,
But Sinner, I mean, again, F1 Sinners, I mean, again, those sold out like instantly or pre-orders. Again, scalpers and everything, right? So that's what makes it hard to get an actual copy. I was fortunate to get an F1 from I'm not sure you heard this retailer in the US, Grove Entertainment.
yeah,
GRE.
yeah. They
Yeah.
took a factor.
Yeah. So I mean, it was just one of those, I got notifications like, okay, I'm just gonna jump on it. It supposed to came back in stock. Boom, got it. And I was like, okay.
Oh,
The
I didn't
Sinners,
know that.
yeah, Sinners. My copy came with a spine slash, but it's like, I'm grateful to just have one now. Um,
Yeah, I got lucky with mine because I got mine through Amazon, and it was one of those ones. Hey, we're temporarily don't have any. We'll put you on the back order, and luckily I got my back order in, and it was fine. But
mm,
then Manta did their center, so I had to have that too.
yeah, I think I was lucky to get the same thing with the Superman movie. I mean, the new reboot. With the James Gunn era on there. But I'm just going to touch real quick. You mentioned Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick. I'm not going to show it, but I have the box on it, but I don't want to take time because I know because I want to dive into more in the other premium resellers for Asia. I was very disappointed with the packaging between the two because normally Blue fans now when they give you that slip, it comes in the outer box and there's an inner box and then the foam pieces with
Hmm.
this.
Yeah,
That happened with Top Gun. It did not happen with Maverick.
correct. I
And
saw that.
Maverick was just the styrofoam. Yes, it's still protected, but when you're paying over like almost $150 for, come on, put in another, put an extra layer of protection. And I normally would not have griped about it, but this is the second time this has happened recently.
Hmm.
The other one that they did this was Transformers: Rise of the Beast. That also came.
Uh,
That also
yeah,
came in the styrofoam also only.
that's right. And it was just inside the little brown box. That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it showed
and
up at the door.
And I usually I keep the brown box because to me it's like, it's nice, it's clean. I mean, yes, it sometimes gets dented because of how it's shipped, transported, but that's the extra layer. And yes, does the foam provide enough cushion technically? Yes, but I don't want to have to. But I keep my stuff from usually the boxes, and so and I put a post-it note tag on it. It's like, okay, this is what this is. Blue Fans, this title, right? So I can always refer to it, open it. Oh, hey. But yeah, when you just have, here's a foam piece, that's just lying there and it's black and white. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't seem right. So I'm not sure if they just ran out of boxes for that, but it just seems like this happened. I said it was one time I let it go, but twice now, Transformers and now Maverick is like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. Like mine was okay when it showed up, but yeah, I remembered that.
Same here. But anyway, if I going to the Asian, so we talk about how great they're the model that basically every should aspire to, in my opinion, right? What they're doing is just awesome. Now, whether or not, again, from the community saying, well, they're not releasing the titles I like. Well, again, they're not catering to you, right? So again, they have to be in business, and they have to come out with titles that's going to sell. Kill Bill will definitely sell.
Yeah, automatically.
Like one of the obscure titles they did was, I think, Her.
Mm.
The Joaquin Phoenix,
with
Scarlett Johansson. That to me is an obscure title, but to me the fact that they put it out was great. So to me they do, and they're not doing the commercialized thing, so to speak. I like that going different. Blue Fence, I guess the group buy just opened recently for Gladiator 2.
Correct.
So yeah, to me that's that's, I'm looking forward to that. But then there's other ones aside from HD Zeta. I think HD Zeta has dropped because they were primarily just only Steelbook. But again, I think cost, licensing, and were they making money? That's the thing it comes down to. I don't know how much cost it is to do business with these studios, to get licensing to make the disc, to get the again the imagery and everything, get the permission, so to speak, and then to actually manufacture it. And you're only manufacturing a certain limited number of copies, so there's a supply chain in terms of that cost. And then when you sell it, and again, unless there's a demand for it, and that's why even I think Blue Fans is not coming out with as many titles as it used to.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still in business. And I don't know if HZ is, again, sometimes the market is where whatever is going on, maybe and this is now the landscape of steelbook collecting or just physical media. It's dwindled. It's contracted compared to, when you first joined, or when obviously I noticed a difference when I'm showing you the G1 steelbooks, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely contracted. It's now a very niche, smaller people who can afford it, because again, the cost has gone up tremendously. I remember buying, steel books for less than $20 here in, at Best Buy and everything. And then when I left, it's like, 35 to 40. And now
that's what killed it for me was, right? Because you brought up Deadpool, right? The steelbook itself, right? I bought the Japanese edition, right? The 3D edition from Amazon Japan. $70. 3D edition, collector's edition, right? That to me justified the cost for it, and the import, right? And importing it in versus almost $70 in the US versus a steelbook. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And again, Amazon didn't stop there with their version limited exclusive of the Fantastic Four First Steps, as well. It's like, but we're the only ones that's carrying this version. So it's like somehow, it justifies us marking it up to, whatever cost it was. I was like, you've got to be kidding me, But now again, standard price here in US for a steelbook like Zootopia, I paid $45 plus tax. That's just a regular steelbook. Now when it comes like to collect on Manta, yes, the the overall price is now a part of it is now shipping. Shipping's expensive because it's coming from Asia, and same with blue fans and wheat. You're really the added padded cost is now the shipping, and for wheat, at least for blue fans and Manta, they will ship direct to you.
Correct.
So that's a little bit, but for wheat, it's now through the hub. So there's a cost to pay from them to ship it to the hub masters, and then another cost from the hub master to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you didn't factor that in, and it's like, wow, yeah, technically it was like it would have been 60, 70 for the premium, which is average cost, was nice, but then now you factor in that shipping, it's like I'm paying over $100 easily, you know, for the full slip, for the lenti or double lenti, you know, which is why then for me it's like, just give me as you said, give me the one click. You know,
one click value, because I know it's like I just got the Godfather in from them, right? And I know for a fact if it was coming from Asia straight to here, just in the one box itself, there's going to be some kind of damage, right? That's just how a lot of, because it's so big as a box, it's a square box, right? Like the Maniacs used to. But the catch being is that at least I know from my peace of mind when it goes to, you know, the hub here in the US, right? That once it gets from that hub to me, right, it's going to be in good condition, right? Like I don't have to worry about that. But the shipping cost is a lot. Even like, you know, when you're buying these stuff from Manta and overseas, right? It's expensive, especially if it's direct to you. So if you look at what the cost was 3 or 4 years ago compared to now, it's almost double, right? You know, for some of this now. But I would just hope and pray that they keep protecting them the way they do, right? Like, for example, I like how Manta and Blue Fans gives you a protector automatically when you buy one of those, right? Not every place does, right? Like, now, luckily, you know, ironically, Manta didn't give you one for the Godfather series because it's a leather bound kind of OC. So they didn't have one that would fit that because it's not the standard Manta. So now I got to, you know, get another protector for that. But that's just part of the packaging, right? And making sure that it gets there correctly and safely.
Yeah, but, and you know, again, I think they've catered, and I think they listen to feedback from the community or the various communities in terms of, hey, these protectors exist. Why not just include it? You know, not just you know as a you know perk, but it's like, hey, you guys get it at wholesale. Just put it on and it's like save us the money. And it's like, yeah, you know, you're already charging us enough as it is. So just how hard is it for you guys to add that slip? And you know, and Manta initially had their growing pains. You know, not everything was.
Oh yeah.
But I would still say, you know, they came out just like filming it. They came out with quality product and they've maintained it, right? Where Film Marine has just dropped it. Blue Fans, I will say now, their quality control was really shoddy for the first few years. I mean, their packaging was nowhere to where. I mean, their packaging now is definitely a considerable improvement to what was before. There was no secondary box. It was just, and I mean, yeah, if they got a lot of members here, I remember I myself had complained of receiving. Luckily, I didn't receive damaged items because again, you have no control with the mail carriers. The moment
it's not their fault.
You know, but you know, you can think it's coming from a boat or a plane is getting tossed around, right? Or a large package drops on it. You know, I wonder what the heck happened. And yeah, you know, they weren't using the type of foam. You know, they weren't using, you know, the boxes, and there was just a lot of people who had complained of damaged copies. You know, and unfortunately, again, when you have only a limited number and they sell out, you know, maybe they have some, you know, if there were any return, maybe they could, you know, swap it out. But basically, you're just stuck. You're at the mercy of now the mail carrier. But then to me, it's like, well, that may be true, but as the manufacturer producer, you can find ways to mitigate that by improving your packaging.
Correct. Learn from what you did. I mean, Raro is a good example, actually, where they saw how bad it was in the beginning, right? And they got the feedback. Everybody let it be known how bad it was, and then they changed it, right? And that's what you should do as a company, right? Take the feedback from your customers and incorporate that into your business and do better. And if you do that, people are going to see that quality, release come out. They're not going to worry about it, right? They're not going to hesitate about supporting you.
Ultimately, yeah, does it cost your bottom line? Yeah, but you're building brand loyalty, and you rather have a loyal customer base who's willing to spend money consistently with you. And if it means just eating a few cents away per copy or per order or however many dollars even, that to me is again, you're investing in the long term. For people to want to continue to do business with you. And I don't know how you talk. I know we're on packaging. I don't know how Manta. You're right. They do use a nice foam for their one clicks. I really like that. They use their standard white collect on box.
Yep.
I don't know how Master Blaster receives it from Wheat because again it's hub. But I know the copies I receive for the one clicks, they are nicely bubble wrapped, but they're in a very thin cardboard box. And I wonder if that's how Wheat sends it out, because I'm sure that Master Blaster gets a whole bulk package of all the shipment of all the copies that members like us order. It's like I'm a bit surprised that there has not been damage because of how thin that cardboard is, that material, and it seems to be consistent coming from Korea. And I say this, and I'm going to mention I think a couple other premium retailers, Nova Media, right? They package the same way. I actually was going to show. I actually have the Everything Everywhere All at Once, one click, very thin layers of bubble wrap. I was like surprised at how thin it was. No damage, but still, because they I think it was I forgot it was direct or I ordered through a group buy. So there was that, and then I think both Nova Media and this one, Plain Archive, have shifted away from. I mean, they still make physical media, but they're shifted away from steelbook. I'm not sure. Again, part of maybe the profit model is not being profitable. Again, the licensing, all the costs involved to the supply chain on that. I mean, Nova Media still does come out with steelbooks, but it's more local, like Korean titles. There has been, or some obscure ones I never heard of. Or maybe there are European movies, whatever. I don't know. But definitely, I think the last one was John Wick 4. That was commercial. I don't know I don't remember if that's the last major commercial. I was hoping they would do Ballerina. I think that was the one I was waiting for. But I don't know. I know Plain Archive. I remember. I used to love their titles. I didn't like the fact that they never gave you the same number if you bought like a set from them. It was never a consistent number, unless it was like you were in the first 50 or something. It's like, I didn't really care for that model. I like their product. I think they're the only one that came out with a whole set of Zero Dark 30 many years ago. So yeah, but they still make physical media, but it's just not really steelbooks. And so I think we haven't heard much from them, either. Again, this is a very niche market, and and as businesses, you have to make decisions that ultimately is like, yeah, how do we stay afloat?
And that's the one thing I've noticed too, right? So, like Kimchi DVD, right? Like I hadn't bought a lot from them, right? I bought the Acura that came out a while back, and because it was something I really wanted to see on their version of it. But then I bought the Substance, right? The one click, right? And that was the very first like real Kimchi DVD that I had bought from the On series, and I really enjoyed it. I want to see more like that done. But one recommendation I would make is to fill up the box. Right. That was kind of the thing when I opened it. There was still some space inside of it, right? So where things could move around. So maybe add like a couple of postcards or something, right, to it. But that's the one thing that I've learned is that every company is kind of different in their model and what they do. So we'll just have to see kind of where they go in the future.
Yeah, I think for Kimchi, I mean, again, they're just they're the retailer, right, for or they just or the retailer, the virtual storefront for all these other producers, right? Like again, they used to be the one primarily like for wheat. You bought the wheat. What we do now with the group buys for wheat, basically through Kimchi TV in the past, right? And until wheat just says we're gonna do it ourselves, cut the middleman out of the picture. So with the other, and then I think, there were other titles that I think other studios or others try to come out. I think there was The Flash, that movie. I'm not sure, was it Mad Max Furiosa? That may have been one. I mean, that didn't come out from wheat, right? That came from another producer over in Korea, and it just never caught on. And I think, and even wheat has been retreading. I said it before earlier. It's just, I don't know how. Again, in terms of looking at the bigger picture down the road, I just don't know how sustainable this is going to be for the smaller these companies. I mean, of course, selfishly, I want them to stay in business, but I think practically, as I said before, but if your goal is to make money and this is not doing it for you because it's a very niche market now and it's expensive, right? And you're only going to make a few hundred copies or whatever of each version, is there really demand for it? And that's the thing. And that's where, again, there was the backlash with the more recent group buy from wheat is Interstellar. Right. I'd say for my wish list, that's the only one I missed out on HD Zeta. I don't know how, but I missed on the re-release of the 4K version of Interstellar, and that to this day still burns me, but that's on me. Right. And the secondary market, whenever it's available, it's like, how much? Holy
$1,000. Last time I saw it,
I was like, nah, no. I love the movie, don't love it that much, And so now it's like, I'm gonna get it now through wheat, a different company, and won't have the HD Zeta label, but it'll still be the 4K version of it. And so it was very limited because I remember I wanted, I usually, for certain titles, I'll order 2 of the one clicks. And this one was now, hell, we have so much high demand. We have to allocate you down just to the 1. Hey, I'm grateful just to have the 1. No problem. Correct. And then somehow, I guess there was so much backlash or feedback to wheat. It's like, well, how can you make so little? And then they finally, I guess, acquiesced to demand and will print more. I mean, I would say I'm on the fence on this one. I would say yes, as a collector, everyone should get a chance to get a copy. Right? I wonder how much of that, even though we're in this now niche market, how much of that is actually going to be resellers who want to profit, right? And sometimes when you now make too many of something, it now, again, you artificially create demand, but then at the same time, now you can't resell anymore. Right?
It's a surplus at that point.
Because yes. So there's that. And then now from the other side, which is, okay, as a business, shouldn't we be the ones to basically, whatever number we as leadership, whatever business come out to print or publish, shouldn't that be our say? Do we really want to let, the fan base, the community really dictate the titles or the number of editions, to make, right? I mean, because then at this time it's like, well, you did it for Interstellar. Why aren't you doing it for this release or that release? At some point to me, it's like you, as a, from a business perspective, you have to draw a line.
There has to be, because A, you don't have infinite resources. B, there's the collectability piece, right? When you say I'm going to put out 100 copies, and then you come out and then you say, okay, we misjudged. We, on this title, there was 300 people that wanted it versus the 100 that we thought would want. I could see the adjustment on that piece, right? Because they're trying, especially with it being a brand new release that hasn't physically released yet. I could see the update on that, right? But then you got to look at can you support that from a business, right? Can you get all the get all the stuff done to make it happen? You already got the licensing because if you didn't have the licensing, you couldn't have the group buy. Period. So you can put out the product, but then the oversaturation on the market too, right? Is if there's too much of it and there's a surplus, that would be an issue. But I think in like group buys, right? For example, I think when we say, hey, we need 300 because 300 people want it, that's 300 purchases easily, right? For them, right? Whereas the other part is if they do direct sales, right? They're taking a gamble at that point, right? And saying, all right, we're going to make 300 copies. It's a direct sell and to see if everybody buys it or not. Maybe, maybe not, right? And it makes it hard for the market too, because if there's just so many of them, then definitely, secondary market resellers are not going to make anything because it's going to be out there in the surplus. But if we say there's 300 and they're only bought through the group buys or bought through these modes, then anything that goes outside of that from resellers is going to be expensive. I mean, I looked at that Interstellar one and I'm like, $1,000, really? It's like, but then I also look at, I've got the blue fans, right? I've got the UHD, I've got the collector's editions, that came out from, Amazon and them. So it's like, do I need the AC Zeta for $1,000? That's what I think we start coming to is, do we really need it at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be it's a nice to have, not a must have.
Correct, right?
And I mean, I don't remember the conversation in terms of how many was the original allocated run, production run for Interstellar for Wheat. But no, I mean, all these sites that we've talked about, they do sell direct. So I mean, yeah, if people want to wait for that appointed hour,
Gamble.
Like for me, it was back in the no days when I was trying to buy direct from Nova Media, or it was like either 10 p.m. at night or 5 a.m. in the morning, just obscure times. And it's like, okay. And then it's just, again, hit and miss, never a guarantee. And so that's where I got into, when, Master Blaster invited me, it's like, okay, I'll do these group buys because I'm paying, technically I would be paying more, but that's with any medium, not just MP, but any medium that you go through, you'd be paying more than what you would do direct. But if you get on the list or you make that list, you're pretty much going to be, now I wouldn't use the word guarantee, but it's pretty a good bet to get a copy.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the peace of mind. I'd rather pay the extra few dollars, however many dollars, so that I can sleep, I can do my own thing without having to remember to go online on my laptop and awake or set my alarm to 4:30 in the morning. It's okay, I'm up. Let me, log in and stuff and hope that I can get a copy of this particular title. So yeah, I mean, that's why I'm very grateful for all the platforms out there and all the people who do this. Again, it's pretty much, from my understanding, is your free time.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, earlier, first thing I said was, major thank you. Thank you, like, for, I didn't say it earlier, but I know I'll say it at the end, but I'll say it now too. Thank you, Nate, for having me, for this inaugural. I mean, I really do. I mean, I am, back for the record, even though I've been one of the more tenured members on MP, I'm also one of the most quiet, and Master Blaster has also commented that I don't write much. Again, I don't type fast, and I just think that, like, for this conversation now is getting close to 2 hours, but this is stuff that for me would have taken years to type. I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but it just takes a long time to type in a forum, and I always found that mode of interaction to be very passive. I mean, yes, you can spend time typing short messages, one-liners, blah, blah. You can add your emojis and add your JPEGs and GIFs to sort of basically visually communicate your tone. so that people don't misinterpret what you want to say and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but I'm not online that often. I don't sign in, unless I basically sign in for mainly to join a group buy and then to make a payment.
Mm.
That's really it. And sometimes there's the conversation where I'll reach out to Extant Revenge and to Master Blaster, and just for those, to give context for those who are like, for Nate and I, the thread between us is Blue fans, because you were kind enough to have that giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one that, and I was one who won. So
I was so happy because for one, that's one of the things I always do, right? It's like I love to give back to our community because you guys always give to us, right? You're always helping us out. And when I came on board, right, to MP, there was, a lot of growing and learning for me, right? And it was my way to say thank you back to everybody, especially like I just did the Secret Santa, right, just last year for all of MP. And I enjoy doing that kind of stuff for you guys because everybody teaches me something every day. I learn a lot from Master Blaster and Extant and Scary Hair and because you know what, they've been here a long time.
mm-hmm.
Right? I'm gonna ask those people the questions, right? Like, what happened to this, or where did this go, or and they're gonna be able to give me the background, right, on it because they've been here. I'm gonna ask the senior people on the forum, right, about things because I don't know everything, right? Because I always learn. Don't pretend like you know something. Just ask, right? It's a lot easier to ask a question.
Yeah.
So that's one way I like to give back to everybody, just to say thank you for the year.
Yeah, it's very much appreciated. And I think, now, like I said, I've seen the evolution of MP. I said definitely with, obviously Master Blaster and, paving the way along with Dodgy Dave and Scary Harry and Extant Revenge and all the other people who've come and go as moderators and administrators, right? I mean, basically, this path has been laid, forward, and it's going to continue to grow and evolve, right, as the market changes, right? And that's where I think by listening, like like the pricing for the platinum membership has, compared before, because the number of group buys have decreased tremendously. Film arena dropping, other type again, no longer. It's okay, so it's now more reasonable compared to a few years ago, and that's the fact that they recognize that, like the leaders, and willing to pass that savings to its members. I think it says a lot about being in touch and being having a pulse, on things, and and this is where I've seen in the years past. I'm not saying current. I'm just saying years past, as members come and go, because this is a fickle. Again, there's people like me who've been, I guess that's the lifers or old timers, so to speak. There's a number of us, right? I mean, again, I'm not active in the communication thread and typing, but I recognize and I see, and and there's certain, I recognize the handle names, and complete respect for all of us who stayed here all this time. But I will say that I've read some chatter in the past of members who, for lack of a better term, gripe, about the group buy rules, the strictness, blah blah blah. And the way I always attribute to this, and I didn't say anything because, again, to me that's just noise. And this is where I always felt for you, the moderators, administrators, like, I definitely now I can understand Dodgy Dave's tone in terms of this is becoming like you're parenting, you're babysitting. This is not high school, right? I mean, you should be 18 plus years old, but you should, behave accordingly. My opinion, my 2 cents here, and I'm going on a little bit of a rant here. But to me, when you join any community forum or platform, to me, if it's open invitation, whatever terms, and you're accepted, it's basically like you're coming to someone's house, a house that's been established, and each house has its house rules.
Correct. 100%.
Like to me, number one, you come to my house, physically come to my house, Shoes are off. I don't care if they're brand new shoes, how clean your feet are, whatever. You're not going to tread shoes onto my tile, my carpet, or anything else, right? That's my number one house rule because it's my house.
Good rules.
Okay, so if you come as a guest, my expectation is you respect that. You may not like it, you may not understand, but you need to respect it. Otherwise, you don't have to come in my house, or you can leave. And that's the same concept that I would say for MP. The rules are in place as guidance, because there's been, I hate to say it, there's been some bad actors. And when those bad actors do things that affect the rest of the community or, impact even, Master Blaster, financially, then okay, we need to put safeguards in place to make sure to mitigate from this happening again. It's not that they just come to, let's see how strict we can be. It's because something happened that, unfortunately triggered a response. And I think members need, I think now, I forgot who's the new moderator. I think all the reflexes.
Reflexes, yeah.
I think, that person's going to try to resurface back up. Hey, this is important. And this is why that you honor these group buys, whether it be deposits or as a new member, blah, blah, blah. We want to have a positive experience. And some people find, but that's just so, like one hand time. Yeah, but guess what? Things happened before, unfortunately, and obviously for all these group buys, guess what? Money has to go out up front to all these retailers or producers, right? And we're not asking you yet for the money. Sometimes it may come in the form of deposit that we're asking up front, but ultimately it's, we do pay, you do pay, and then it goes. But now that's changed, right? Unlike what Extant Revenge has to do with filming, it's like, give us the money that we're supposed to, But now it's like, that's how things have changed, and things happened, right? That led the rules to be where they are now. And and I always say that's the rule it is today. It could change tomorrow or down the road as circumstances and the situation, like, with the tariffs or other things that could impact change. And I think as, members who choose to be members or stay as members, to be mindful, respectful of that, and not take the time to just rant and, basically berate. Either these moderators are strict or whatever, not, blah, blah, blah. You're entitled to your opinion, and I will respect that. Whether I'm sorry that it was, or you perceived as, perception is reality, and that's your perception, that's your reality. If that was a negative experience for you, I'm sorry it happened. Obviously you felt a certain way. Yes, you are welcome to channel your frustrations, but I think there's more productive ways of doing it. That's my opinion.
And there is, right? And that's what we always communicate, right? Like, we're all grown-ups here, right? We're not kids in school. We're here, to have a community and have a good time with one another, right? But if you have issues, 100% contact a moderator or an admin, right? Don't take it out in the forums, right? Because then it becomes a huge, ugly thing. But if you've got an issue, definitely come to us. That's what we're here for. We don't get paid, as you were saying, right? This is free. This is a labor of love that we'd like to do for you guys. So we're just trying to make it a good community for everybody. Have a good
one, and it's a good safe harbor, and I appreciate that, and I hope other members do so as well. I've seen the accolades, but for me, I also want to verbally say it, right? Because as you just mentioned, this is your free time. Everyone's free time, and I see the amount of effort, and I'm just like, and it's, and some of them have full-time jobs and work, and they're adding this on top of it, on top of being, in relationships with family, other things. It's like, I'm just amazed at how much, how you can allocate whatever part of a week or a day to do all this, respond to people, and again, even the response, and that's, I would say probably, in my opinion, I've never been a moderator. I have no interest to be, because I would have very poor babysitting skills, because I'd be like more like, oh, just shut the front door, um, because man, this is just sort of like, but you have to, as a moderator, you have to take the time to answer and be as polite and be politically correct, where in my mind I'd be like, I'll say the PC thing, but in my mind would be like, oh, you stupid, and that's probably what we think in reality, but then you can't say it. But this is where I think, members should just not take what you and the other moderators and administrators do for granted. Sometimes I feel that's the case. It's almost as if like there's a responsibility and accountability factor that to me is unfairly aimed at, because you're the mod, you should know, you should be the one, to resolve my concerns, my issues, my problems, whatever. It's like, like sometimes, once it's, like you receive a damaged copy, but once it goes to mail carrier, that's out of everyone's hands.
And that's what I think a lot of you have to understand too, right? There are, a statute of limitations, right? There are things we can control, and there are things we can't control, right? And the things that we can't control, we'll try to help you the most way possible as we can through it. But at the end of the day, right, there's only so much we can do. But if you don't tell us and you don't come to us directly, which is what I always recommend, come to us directly, then it will become an issue. And we don't want to go there. There's no reason to go there, right? And that's the catch-22, right? There's no reason to bash one another either, right? Over opinions, right? If you have a strong opinion about something and somebody else does too, and there gets to be a conflict, then one of us will have to step in. That's our job, right? That's what we do as moderators and administrators. But just to be respectful of one another, and a lot of times that doesn't happen. I mean, I will say in our community and media psychos, like we don't really have that compared to a lot of other forums that I've been a part of, right? Like we'll have things here and there. You always get your bad actors. That's going to be regardless. But the thing is I don't see inline fighting, right? Like I've seen in other places, which is why I'm not in those forums anymore. That's why I'm here, right? Because I did not want to be part of that community anymore. Because especially when they would bash on one another, and then they would bash on other communities as well. To me, that's just not a good model as an administrator. That means you're openly against other people. It's like, actually, we should be a community together, right? All of these different forums should be a bigger community. It's the physical media community, right? Of supporting one another. But that doesn't always happen, right? Because people get their opinions into it, and they don't like somebody. So if they don't like somebody, then they don't like their forum. And to me, that's bad business, really, and it's not needed. And that's why I like here, because there's not a lot of drama, and I appreciate that. I'm going to tell that to everybody. Thank you guys for not having such a drama issue all the time.
Well, no, and you're right. Things have definitely mellowed, because again, it's through the leadership of Master Blaster, the administrators. I mean, as it evolved. I will say again, because I've been almost from the onset, even though I haven't said much, but again, I've witnessed or observed. I will say there has been, and in the past, initially there was drama. I mean, again, but that's how you. That's why I said before about about the rules.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they came in place, because of things that happened,
Right.
or how people behaved. And so for those members who are coming in, past or later stages, yeah, this is, again, it's with anything. Everything starts off. You have your bumpy roads, bumpy patches, right? But once if you're willing to learn from it and make the adjustments and create that space for people, and in this case collectors, to feel safe in and thrive in, then yeah, then that's the win, right there. And if it means putting some extra guardrails, or gates to baby proof things, so be it. But then to me, it's not intended to be adversive.
No.
I mean, that's the thing that I think some people don't understand is like, they're there for a reason. And yes, it's unfortunate that sometimes only a few incidents led to this. But again, those few instances had some consequences, whether it be financial or emotional, or just again from a safety perspective. And that's what we're here maintains. Like, yeah, we can agree to disagree that I don't agree with some of the wish lists that people put up there and titles. Like obviously I just learned today that you're a horrorphile.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I'm not going
okay.
But to me, but it's like, yeah, I was, one of my things in the sidebar would be like, oh, you must have the Nightmare on Elm Street steelbook set that Amazon had put out,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those, okay, but I'm not going to buy it because I'm not that fan. But this is where, again, this mix of different genres but the fact that the underlying, that dots us all together is the fact that we all love physical media.
Yeah.
And that's what, and that's where the love comes in, the passion, whatever genre we go with. Like now that I know that you're also into, hey, statues, I learned something. And now it's like, okay, that we're both completists, on the one clicks and stuff, and there's certain titles that you want, and there's certain titles I want still. Actually, that's the only one that's on my list in terms of completists I never got, but on the HD Zeta Interstellar 4K. But, I can say that, but am I going to spend $1,000? Heck no.
No.
And
we're also realistic. We also know too there are limitations too, because A, you might have another group buy coming in. There might be another set that you have to order online, or B, it's just too damn expensive, for what it costs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're about 2 hours in. I hear my wife, so I mean it's that time. So it's been good to have you on. Definitely, I'd like to have you back on again another time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm more than happy to chat about any other topics that we missed out on today. But I think we covered most of hopefully what you want to get to know. If there's any questions from any members of I'm not sure who's on or whoever watches this later on, but I would say yeah, you can feel free to DM me and DM Nate, or DM us, so to speak. I'm happy to answer any questions. I am going to honestly admit that I will probably have a slow reaction time, because I'm not here that often. But I do get the notification via email, and so that will be the trigger for me to like, oh, okay, I need to respond within a timely manner. So I would say if anyone DMs me, probably within 24, 48 hours. But in terms of my disclaimer on there, for that. But Nate, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. So like I said, everybody, this is our first of many. I plan on doing tons and tons of these because I want to get to know people in our community, right, outside of the forum, but then also be able to actually talk to them and see them in person, right? Because we are a community, and I like our community to even be closer than what it is today, right? And how do you do that? By communicating, right? So thank you, everybody. I am Nate, your Media Psychos social media manager. This has been the Major for Media Psychos. Thank you, everybody. I hope you guys have a great night. And if you have not done it, go join Media Psychos today. www.mediapsychos.com. Go join that. And if you have questions, like he said, contact me or him. We'll definitely help you out. That's what we're here for. All right, buddy. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.